Welcome in everyone to HogvilleNET YouTube Live. It's Sunday night, and a little bit more information. I call it intel because I've spoken with one of the Ole Miss beat writers, and Arkansas and Ole Miss are two of the Final Four teams for Jaron Pierre Jr. So we're trying to track down and figure out what's going on this weekend with visits because, as you know, this is a situation with his recruitment that's heating up. The 6'5" guard, Conference USA Player of the Year, played at Jacksonville State last year. Big time. Well, I don't have good news right now, but it's more information. And so Jaron Pierre Jr. I'm just going to walk back through it to see everybody, put everybody back to where it was. A little over a week ago, I got him on the phone. He confirmed that Arkansas had been in touch with his agent, and he told me he'd been directly speaking with Ole Miss and Kentucky. Then a few days later, when I got wind that he might be down to a Final Four and going to make a decision by Monday, I reached out to him. He confirmed that it's Arkansas, SMU, Ole Miss, and Auburn. He confirmed that he was going to have a decision by Monday. And then we talked a little bit that he's going to have a workout with the Washington Wizards in May. And then I asked him, where visits are you taking this weekend? Because that was Friday. I think it was Friday morning when I spoke with him. And he's making a decision by Monday. So he'd already visited. He'd only visited, as far as I know, SMU. And then I started asking him. He said, well, he didn't know yet if he was going to visit Arkansas or Ole Miss or Auburn. It was a little either coy about that, or he maybe legitimately didn't know because his agent's helping with that. I have a feeling he probably did, but that's okay. We walked through all that. So there was that. Then Friday night, I was getting word that he might be on campus, that someone was reaching out to me saying he's there. He's been identified as far as someone recognizing, but that's not really enough to go and post that on even on a message board, let alone tweet it. And so I waited. It was kind of late. And I reached out to him with a text, didn't get him in the morning. Then I just called him later when I was told someone else said they think he's gone now. Well, the timeline might match up here in a minute. But if you remember, I went ahead and called him and I got him on the phone. It was an awful call because of the connection. And I didn't understand many of the words he said, other than the first thing I did was identify myself and say, how's Fayetteville? And he said, good, or it's good, something to that nature. But I heard good. And then it was muddled. I kept asking questions, trying to be patient, hoping it would clear up. Then later I heard, I'm in Dallas or been in Dallas or something like that. And then the last thing I heard was my guy. And then we disconnected. And so I didn't talk to him again. But I have talked. So that was Saturday, right? And this was about midday. And I came on and did one of these and went through all that with you. And I said, look, he might have heard my original question and said Fayetteville was good, which would confirm that he's there, but because that was such a bad just a really poor quality, most of it was muddled and garbled and you couldn't understand what was being said. Giving him the benefit of the doubt, if he didn't understand my original question, good might have answered something he thought he heard. So I had to, own up to that's possible. I'm not going to just run with something, and paint it in a corner of something you think is positive and just tell you that part of it. I gave you the full thing because I want the full transparency. Well, I started hearing that maybe he was at Ole Miss this week. Now, if you remember when we've talked about this Final Four, and back when he told me originally that Kentucky and Ole Miss were the ones he'd spoken with directly when Arkansas had just talked to his agent, one of these recent segments I said, Ole Miss, I've heard Chris Beard may be willing to put a bigger bag for this guy. Now, he's been on campus at SMU. SMU's been recruiting him. And we speculated the Dallas thing. He told me, could he be back visiting SMU? I also said maybe he's traveling and it's a stopover or something like that. And I got him on the phone. It was a horrible connection. It was unfortunate that I didn't get more out of that. But now I've talked to one of the Ole Miss beat writers who told me he's got a really good source that he has never let him down, and that he believes that Pierre's been on Ole Miss campus and visiting with the Rebels and Chris Beard, and he thinks it began sometime on Saturday and that he left sometime today. Well, that would be a similar timeline to what it looked like if it's true. People saying they thought he was on campus at Arkansas Friday night at some point Friday, and maybe leaving Saturday. And then maybe he understood clearly what I said and gave me an honest answer. Maybe he clearly understood what I said and he wasn't there and he's, whatever, just misdirection. Maybe he was answering something else he thought he heard. Again, I'm going through all the possibilities. But this beat writer for Ole Miss believes it was one of those quick turnaround visits. All right, so We have never said that we think that this is a guy that's silently committed to Arkansas. In fact, when I was last on talking about this stuff, I said, unlike Malik Ewan and unlike Nick Pringle, I have no confirmation. In fact, I'm told there's no word on any paperwork being cleared for him through Arkansas for enrollment, going through the formal process to eventually, be enrolled at Arkansas. So we've never had a feeling that this is an Arkansas lean. I've never said I think Arkansas is the favorite. We've never been there. We're still trying to piece together. So for those that say, well, what's the update then? If you don't have a final result, what's the point? Well, we're getting close to it. If he's truly going to announce tomorrow, and maybe a little bit more information helps you understand if you believe that he was at Arkansas, and I believe he probably was. I'm not 100% there. It's why I've never tweeted that out. It's why I've never gone even to HogvilleNET and posted he was on campus. What I've done is I've let the segment that I did yesterday, the HogvilleNET YouTube Live, stand on its own. You watch it and you make your own determinations. What does that sound like? What do you think? Because I'm not 100% sure on that. I am 100% sure that Malik Ewan is scheduled to come in and visit starting as soon as tomorrow. Maybe he arrives sometime today. I'm 100% sure that his paperwork's been done. The admissions process, the procedural admissions and enrollment, all that has been done as a silent commit, ready to take the visit and then go public, just like it was done every single time last year. Nick Pringle, a little bit different. It's been more quiet with him. There's no list of schools other than the initial list that went out. But now I feel pretty good that he visited before the dead period. I've gotten to the point where I've heard enough and gotten enough on that seems likely, if not a given at this point. I know that his paperwork, but that's the combination of admissions, enrollment, obviously the financial aid agreement for he and you, and all that's done. And now we're waiting on since we believe he did visit at some point, a commitment announcement is made publicly. And so with those two, I haven't wavered in the fact that I think it's heading toward that's going to be the final result. What I've always done is give caveats what's happened in the past with a couple of players when Arkansas elected to move on after all those things had been done, all those boxes had been checked, because going to that point, it looked like Arkansas was going to have them and then made a choice to not based on circumstances. So that can always happen. I say that with either Ewan or Pringle. I doubt that it does. But if we think that it will, we'll come on here maybe before it happens if we learn about something like that. I just don't think it will. With Pierre, I've never been there. I've never been to the point where thinking that Arkansas is in the lead. I've not been to a point where I'm 100% convinced he was on campus. And I have gotten again, every time I check on the paperwork part, it's not yet. So if he was on campus and that wasn't even done, that tells me he wasn't even a private commit at that point. If he was on campus and the paperwork's not done. If he was on campus and made a private commit and they started the part of the paperwork, I don't think he would be going off to Ole Miss to visit. So there's another way to look at it. That's why just little nuggets of information. Another reporter for another team that's out, that in the SEC that was recruiting Pierre Jr. and backed off. When I told him the story about the bad phone call, he chuckled and he goes, "You're not the first reporter and beat writer to tell me that they've had a bad connection with him." I thought that was weird. I didn't ask him, "Hey, did you have a bad connection with him?" I just told him what happened with me, and he offered that information. And so when I was speculating about why the call might have been bad, maybe he's traveling, hit a bad spot and all that, now I'm thinking if it's a consistent thing, I know people that have those Bluetooth, hands-free setups, and some of them are gosh awful. And I'll tell them, "Look, I can't do this. I can't hear you. I don't understand you. Not sure you can hear me. Call me back when you're not using your setup there." So maybe it's one of those deals, and sometimes when he's using that, it's just bad quality. I don't know. I'm speculating, but I thought that was interesting to hear that my story is not unusual, that's happened before. Now, another little piece of information here. The Ole Miss beat writer told me that Pierre has talked to another reporter that covers Ole Miss and has disavowed the idea that he was in Oxford and on campus, that he's denied it. Well, we know that these coaching staffs, like Arkansas's, they want to get these guys in under the radar. Chris Beard operates that way as well. And one of the tells is usually when it's high school kids, or like last year when Calipari was bringing in his Kentucky guys, immediately on their social media, like on their IG, their Instagram accounts, you get a photo. It says Fayetteville with a with a pin. They pinned it that they're in Fayetteville, and they give you a photo inside the practice facility or something like that. And these things are being kept so under wraps, they're not allowing the prospects coming in to do that. So that's why we haven't seen any social media this weekend for Jaron Pierre Jr. Very likely is that these staffs are like, look, this is under the radar. So if he was on Arkansas's campus and Arkansas knows that he's going to be looking at other schools, but they haven't done paperwork, that tells me the likely Calipari is wanting to meet with he and his representative, go through everything, maybe see what they can work out with NIL. The fact that he's at Ole Miss might mean, it just might mean, if he went to Ole Miss later, that they didn't get on the same page. Because I think if they would have, based on him maybe being there Friday and Saturday, it seems like he was, and then on to Ole Miss, then I don't know that Arkansas would be okay with him going on to Ole Miss if they got to a point where they were comfortable. I'm not sure that Calipari, would have been okay with, okay, they like what they heard, go ahead and go take care of the visit. I don't know, because he hasn't really operated that way in the portal since he's been in Arkansas. High school kids, it's been different. Remember, Darius Acuff Jr., Malik Thomas, they both visited UConn after they visited Arkansas. They ended up at Arkansas. And that's a longer recruiting process, and it's just a different animal. So I don't know if he would apply okay, that's fine, sounds good, looks like we're going in the right direction, go ahead and check out Ole Miss and make sure. I don't think in portal season he operates the same way. So there's more than one way to look at it. And I'm at the point now where, it's anybody's guess. It doesn't sound like Auburn, unless he's doing a late Sunday visit to Auburn and leaving on Monday. We know he was already at SMU. We know that something he said to me that I could understand was, I'm in Dallas, or been in Dallas, or something to do with Dallas. Again, I don't know what to make of that. He could have been telling me something completely different based on something he said before that I didn't understand. So again, that stuff was clear as mud. I get that. We got a little more clarity today, though. I hope it's helpful. 12 minutes in, I'm Kevin McPherson. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Kamani, another Kamani spelled differently. Hamilton, a 6'6", 6'7" out of High Point. That's a mid-major that's had, it's got a good basketball name. Arkansas contacted him apparently. Transfer Tapes, which is a Twitter account, put out a list. Someone that operates the Twitter account, obviously, put out a list of the recent contacts since this young man's been in the portal. Again, a 6'6", 6'7", 3'4" kind of guy. That Arkansas may be kicking the tires on relative to Adu Thero making his announcement and declaring for the NBA draft. You're looking at a situation where, how serious is Arkansas about that? How old is the contact? Not 100% sure, but Kentucky's been in touch with him. Eric Patrick Melsman in Southern Cal, some other SEC teams, multiple high majors, but he's 13 points per game, 4.6 rebounds, 2.2 assists, played less than 25 minutes a game this year, 52% field goal shooter. He made 28 threes at a 32% clip, and he's a 72% free throw shooter. Last year at High Point, he actually averaged nearly 15 points per game, nearly 8 rebounds per game, and was playing more minutes. So his minutes, I don't know the ins and outs on that. His production went down a little bit, but some of his efficiency got better. So you just never know about those situations. But he's a guy that's played 3 years of college basketball to this point, and is in the portal. And so Arkansas has made an initial contact. I retweeted this tweet yesterday. Sometime, I don't know, whenever it came out, I saw it and retweeted it. I've since tried to get in touch with the young man. I haven't heard back from him. But Kamani Hamilton, a 6'6" combo forward. And we've been talking about Pierre. If you add Pierre, and I went through some small ball possibilities, Arkansas expanding from 9 to 11. I think on the last one of these, or the one before that, I said, how awful would it be if they went to 12? If they went to 12 and just considered both Sealy and Artal as luxuries for depth if needed, and then just use them as development pieces and not necessarily even having a given 8 to 10 minutes a game. But if you went to 12, and those were those two guys that are kind of on the fringe there, that means you'd have a 10 deep instead of a 9 deep in your true rotation. So that's another way to expand and maybe work on get a guy like Jaron Pierre Jr. or another guard that helps answer some of the 3-point shooting questions. and a guy that could fit in as a replace to help backfill that 4 spot behind Trevor and Brazil, and so that you're not scrambling and feeling like you've got to force a Carter Knox into an expanded role and take him more off the wing to fill in there. Or maybe Artal is a guy that you're not fully comfortable with, giving him consistent 8 to 10 minutes game. That's a way to do it. It may not be the best way to do it. The best way to do it might be to do what I said again the other day when I went through all that, and then I said, but maybe it's even more preferable to go to a 12 deep. And I didn't talk more about that after I said it, but that's one way to maybe look at it. Kentucky fans are a little touched. So Jaron, this dude is just an incredible scorer. 21.6 points per game, Jaron Pierre Jr. He's got a really good quick first step, explosive to the rim. He's got just a crazy mid-range game when you start looking at all the craft and all his counter moves. He's got spin moves. He's got change of direction. He's got change of pace. He can post you up mid-post and do a turnaround on you. He's just got a lot of ways to do it. He's not afraid of contact. He's just got an array finishing left and right side of the bucket from all kinds of cool angles. And then of course the 3-point shooting, Jaron Pierre Jr. 7.6 attempts from 3 per game at 38.2%. We've talked more about that. 81% free throw shooter. This is the kind of guy, that I've heard different things about in terms of how would Arkansas use him, and he could be a primary handler. Remember, average 3.8 assists per game. Kentucky doesn't have a roster that blows anybody away. Looks like, by the way, speaking of Kentucky, looks like Brandon Garrison's kind of been back and forth. Was he going to get in the portal? There was steam that he might. Then it looks like he's announced that he's coming back. Arkansas doesn't have a retention announcement at this moment. Here we are. What is it? Getting into mid-April now. We're pushing that. And the only news we've heard are guys leaving. So let's go through it again. Darius Acuff Jr., I'm going to talk about in a minute. Malik Thomas, you feel like they're coming in as 2 top 10 rated 5-star guards. They're going to have the kind of big roles that Calipari always delivers for most of his freshmen, typically, and they look the part. You've got Trevor Brazil, who to me is the guy at the 4, going to help at the 5. And the way he was playing at the end of the year, if he can maintain that, that guy's got all league potential and can really help you. Carter Knox, Billy Richmond III. I would say both of those guys have all league potential in some form or fashion. If I was predicting based on the way the season ended, I'd say Carter Knox is a guy that, depending upon the season, could go anywhere from first, second, or third team all SEC. And Billy Richmond III might be a guy that makes the all defensive team or something like that. And then DJ Wagner, he's a guy that the more and more I don't hear that maybe he's looking to leave or that this school might have interest. And as that time continues to go, the more I start to favor the idea that he's coming back. The last time I was on, I said 51-49. Now I think he's coming back. So with all of that, with those 4 and Acuff, the retention pieces, if you retain all 4 with Acuff and Malik Thomas, you've got a stacked backcourt. We know what Trevor Brazil is. He's your versatile 4 that can also play the 5. That's why those 2 big man additions are so important and the priorities right now. And so 4 plus 4, again, the signed guys, including Seeley and Rital, get you to 8 with retention. The 2 big men on pace to officially become Razorbacks at some point. And if one or both, something blows up on that, it's because Arkansas has moved on to something else at once, or there was some NIL pressure that Arkansas is not willing to do, and they'll get something of equal or better value in the portal. I always throw that in there because it's happened twice before. But again, I think Arkansas is headed to 10 by that path. The 4 signees, the 4 retention pieces, and those 2. That's where I'm at right now. And 2 of those 10, again, are maybe guys that are a little bit more reliable in terms of could I use them in a pinch than what you had last year in the extras outside of that top 9. So if you're not sure about that, maybe go ahead and add 2 more to get to a true top 10 plus Seeley and Artal that get you to 12. And maybe the best ways to get those extra 2 are some backcourt piece that helps answer some of the 3-point shooting concerns that you have. And then another guy that can slot in as a 3-4, doesn't have to be an oversized guy at the 4, and a guy that understands that he may have a backup role. And just be one of those guys that's going to have a role, be in the rotation. You're going to pay him NIL. So there's a way to do, there's more than one way to do it. And we try to hit all of those. Arkansas should be able to get whoever they want. Well, I think they're getting who they want and who they targeted. It just hasn't been announced yet. League better than Jasper. Great stuff, Kevin. Appreciate these videos. Thank you, E. Jones. Some folks don't like it unless I've got full 100% answers for them on what's going to happen. Right. Any idea why Pringle hasn't gone public? I mean, that's the other thing. There may be some practical reason why Calipari and the staff are holding off on that in concert with Pringle, and that's a great question. But there's nothing out there in the mix to suggest there's something weird or awkward going on there. But we won't know that until maybe something comes out. If it did, going in a different direction now, then you're like, oh, I guess there was a reason for it. I just don't think there is. I don't think there is. And the more that, the closer we get to, I think Arkansas is going to get anywhere from 1 to 3 announcements for new additions out of the portal this week in the coming days. I'll call it a week, let's say through this time next week, anywhere from 1 to 3. And hopefully you're getting some retention announcements or some kind of clarity on knowing that guys are coming back. So we'll see, we'll see exactly what plays out there. 21 and a half minutes in, I'm Kevin McPherson. It's HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Please hit subscribe, like, and share, and turn on the notifications if you haven't already. Fans are sick of waiting around. I just always go back to Calipari lands, in recruiting, he lands it just right every time. What's to worry about? It's fun to do this. I like all the contacts I get to make and go through this stuff and piece it together. It's kind of forensics. Some of that's fun. The fans don't like it. They don't like it when, I tell them I had a call that was breaking up, or, I'm saying I've got new intel, but they expect that intel to mean this guy's committing at this time. It's over. Don't worry about any of the precedents before. It's a done deal. I won't do that until it is, until it's certain. And usually that's out on social media as we're all kind of finding out. So sometimes I get the heads up before, usually I do, and I can't say anything at that point and won't, but sometimes, it's out of our control. We just, but I'm trying to piece it all together for you the best I can to kind of give you a path on what's going on. Look, I want to talk about A-Cuff. Did you see the Nike Hoop Summit last night on USA Network? Part of the proud NBC National Broadcasting Company family of cable programming, USA Network. But the Nike Hoop Summit, Darius A-Cuff Jr. went off last night. Tied for the game high in scoring, 24 points, but he was efficient, 9 of 14 from the field. Look, man, 4 of 8 from 3 after watching him shaky, 1 of 8 from 3 in the McDonald's game. And we're talking about Arkansas needs 3-point shooters. There's only so much you can take out of small sample sizes. And then the other thing is you're like, well, it's an all-star game. No, even the McDonald's all-star game is more competitive now than it has been. But the Nike Hoop Summit's even a better level of competition in terms of the format. You saw defense being played, not always by A-Cuff, but in general, a physical game, a tough game. Dudes were out there competing to win, and there were no free passes given. And so that was a really good game that went to overtime. And I look at A-Cuff statistically, okay? I mentioned 9 of 14 overall from the field, 4 of 8 from 3. It's not an all-star game, but it's taking your top, like your McDonald's level players, and you're playing some of the same guys that were in the McDonald's game that qualify for the world team. And then you have some others that weren't in the McDonald's game. So you're right. In a sense, it's not an all-star game, but it's during all-star game season, and most of these guys. Now, there was a 2026 kid, Taj Ariza, that did some really good stuff on the world team, and he's 2026, I believe. But you get the point. I mean, a lot of times people think these games at this time of year are just fluff, and this was anything but fluff. But you look at the efficiency again. A-Cuff, 5 of 6 inside the arc, 5 of 6 shooting, and some of those were tough buckets. He got one in transition where he got hammered by a big guy. No call. He finished on the left side, lefty. Just a beautiful finish. He had another runner at the end of regulation. His team was up a point. He went right side with 3 guys converging on him and just put a little floater up. Got himself turned toward the basket, put a little floater up. It was nothing but net from about 8 or 9 feet out on the right side of the paint. Gave his team a 3-point lead. Ends up going to overtime. And I always talked about A-Cup this year. There was a reason beyond his stats why he was a finalist for the Naismith Trophy National Player of the Year, why he was a first team All-American. No matter what service it was, this guy was a top, why he's rated top 5 in the services as the #1 point guard, by the way, in the country. There's a reason for that. It wasn't just him statistically. Playing at IMG Academy and that brutal schedule that team plays, how many clutch moments did he have? How many games did he win? And at the end of games, he took games over and made the W out of maybe a potential loss. It's exactly what he did in this Nike Hoop Summit. When we go to overtime, his team, Team USA, gets the ball to start overtime, and he breaks down the first defender. He does get help with a pick, but he starts attacking toward the paint to put pressure on the paint. And when he did that, it froze other defenders. You saw some move toward him, and then even the backline defenders could not cover up what was behind them. They had to be prepared. They were starting to lean towards A-Cup's drive. And so he just pulled up and threw a little lob pass to Cameron Boozer for a dunk. So he created that play by the paint pressure and the determination to drive that ball. So advantage 2 points. Next bucket scored after a stop is A-Cup on a real nice catch and shoot triple. Now you've gone from a tie game entering overtime to a 5-point lead, and that's all on him. At that point, I think it was 103-98, but he hits a three, and it was a nice play. He had the ball on the right side out high, pass back to the top, got a pass back immediately, and he had a little cleaner look than the first time when he had it, and just stroked a three. So 5-point lead. I believe after another stop, he got a defensive rebound. Then I think there was another three by Trey McKinney that expanded the lead from 5. No, I'm not sure now, but he had a reach around steal, poked the ball away. Teammate got it, threw ahead to him. He got a nice little layup, uncontested, and the lead blew up to 8, 108-100. Yeah, so at some point, World Team did score a bucket because that made it 108-100. But he factored into 7 points in that run. He had a three, he had a layup after forcing his turnover, and he assisted on that dunk, and he had a defensive rebound in that stretch as well, where you go from a tie game to putting the game out of reach. It was never closer than a 3-possession game the rest of the way, and Team USA won by 10 points. I described all of that to tell you, this dude, other guys had great statistical games. Other guys did some stuff. Darius A-Cup Jr. wasn't perfect. He had 3 turnovers in this game. He did not turn the ball over in the McDonald's game. He had 3 in this game. Defensively, he was matador at times. But when it came to making plays that separated winning from losing, he did that shit again on the biggest stage on his level against the best players, in the country and some in the world that are, a lot of these guys are going to hear their name called in an NBA draft after their freshman season next year. So he may be one of them that's in the lottery too. We don't know that. I suspect he ends up a first round, even if not lottery. But just the plays he made to separate that from a game that was going back and forth at that point to putting it out of reach said a lot. So he ends up with 24 points. I had him with 5 assists, a couple of rebounds and a steal. I think the official stats had him with 4 rebounds and 3 assists. Whatever, you get it. The 24 points, the shooting percentage was great. He made both of his free throws in this game. And now when you cobble together his production of McDonald's game, 18 points in the 2 games, 4.5 assists, 1.5 turnovers. So a 3-to-1 turnover ratio. So I mean, those are good stats for in All-Star season, whether you want to qualify Nike Hoop Summit as an All-Star game or not. I'm not going to get in the weeds with you on that. I'm just saying, the stats look good in these, it's a small sample size in this, but I thought these guys spent most of the week in Portland. And they were well coached. You could tell they were prepared. They were running stuff, and it did not look discombobulated. It looked good. Not that everybody was perfect, but again, Darius A-Cup Jr. is the goods, man. He comes in there. Don't be bashful about a veteran guy like DJ Wagner facing the situation where he's going to have to share duties. They've just got to figure that out. And if you add another guard like Pierre, does that, you're just going to have to figure it out. You're going to have to make it work, right? Uh, the other thing I liked about about Acuff starting, he started in both games, started for the East team in the McDonald's All-American game, of course, started for Team USA in this game, is that once you got to the fourth quarter crunch time, the starters were on the court and they did not come off until overtime. There was one exception to that, and that was Nate Ament. He did not have a good game. His lack of strength really showed up in this game, I thought. He was unable to really do much. And they took him off the court. Trey McKinney, he's going to Michigan, had a really good game, really good catch and shoot, understands how to spot up and let the ball movement work for him and just catch and shoot. Shot 3 balls with confidence, made his free throws at the end of the game to help ice it, had some big defensive plays. He was one of the guys on the court at the end in place of Ament. You had the other 4 starters. I thought Cameron Boozer was awesome. I thought he tried to do too much in the McDonald's game, even though he had a double-double. He tried to play hero ball as a 6'8", 6'9" point guard going coast to coast, and I thought hurt his team in that game in an All-Star game last night. He was wonderful. AJ DeBonsa had a lot on display. I keep saying Tunde Yusefo, who I was saying back in October, yeah, he's a 5-star, 18th ranked, 15th ranked, somewhere in there. And I tweeted this out. I'm like, this dude's underrated, man. He's not talked about enough. He dominated the McDonald's All-American game, arguably one of the top 2 or 3 players in that game. And he might have been the best player last night. You could split hairs and say, I gave it a tie between him and Cameron Boozer. AJ DeBonsa got close next at the third on and then I had Darius Acuff as my 4th best player last night. But Yusefo's going to Baylor. And this dude is a freaking monster, man. 6'5", 6'6". I covered him at the King Cotton Holiday Classic for a couple of years, and he was easily the best player there when I watched him. And I was just shocked back then. The first time he was there and I covered it, I was shocked that he wasn't rated higher. And I remember, again, back in October of 2024, I saw something with him and I'm like, I tweeted out, this dude's underrated. If you can be a 5-star and underrated, I mean, he's made a case now through the McDonald's game and the Nike Hoop Summit and he was on Team World, by the way, and brought them back, hit the shot, got the coast-to-coast shot with Acuff, couldn't stay in front of him to send the game to overtime off a missed free throw by Cameron Boozer. If he'd have made the free throw, it's a 3-point lead, missed it too. Yusefo gets it to overtime. The dude is a beast on defense. His anticipation, his quickness, he's built, he's built like he's got an NBA body already. He reminds me of Ant-Man, Anthony. Here I go again, getting blank on someone's last name that I've known my whole life. Played at Georgia, one of the best. Anthony Edwards reminds me a lot of him, body-wise, quickness-wise, instincts-wise. Better defender at the same stage, though. Better defender than Ant-Man at the same stage. And we'll see how polished he can get. He also hit a big 3 and a big comeback. The world team was down by double digits. All right, I've probably gone a little bit too far on that. 33 minutes in, I'm going to sign off. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. Glad you could join me tonight. I hope the information was helpful tonight. We're now on Commitment Watch. Jaron Pierre Jr., we could find out tomorrow where it's going to be. I kind of told you what my feelings were on that. Yeah, Yusefo's the most underrated player. I think so. Go get Darian Williams or Watkins. Jameer Watkins would be, he's a guy that's going to be a feature kind of player, though. And how does that work with the Trevor in Brazil? I think if you're going to expand to 12, you're really talking about just some depth there. Maybe someone that you would ride with experience in the college game over a Kareem Artal, but not someone that's really competing for that major role. And with I think they're going to earmark Brazil for that. I could be wrong. We could see what happens. Great work, Kevin. Thank you. Forget Ament. Look, I still think Ament is going to be a hell of a player, and I don't have any problem with Calipari prioritizing him and potentially, still having a shot maybe to land him, even though it doesn't look that way. I'm okay with it. Here's another. Someone said, forget Pringle. The other thing I said the other day is I said this was a long week or whatever in Portland. And you have the NBA scouts there all week, watching the scrimmages, watching the workouts. And one of them reached out to me to talk about Acuff and some other stuff. He goes, "Hey, I heard that Calipari may be trying to come up here this week for the actual game." As far as I know, Calipari didn't make it. I haven't talked to that source yet to confirm whether or not he saw him. But if Calipari was there, I think the TV cameras would have picked up on that, and I'm sure Calipari would have tweeted something. He usually puts something out on social media when he goes for stuff like that. It gets out there. So I don't think he did. So just following up on that as well. 35 minutes in. Once again, thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. One last request for you to hang in with me. I could be right back on later tonight if something breaks, or early in the morning. Who knows? I'll plan to be on tomorrow regardless to figure out what the hell's going on. Appreciate all the compliments. There's been a lot of that. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Get in your jammies. I am. It's Sunday night. I can't wait for the season 2 premiere of Last of Us on Max. I love that last year. I think that's it. The Last of Us or Last of Us. That's the new one coming out. Season 2. I'm in my jammies. I'm gonna get in there and stay on Twitter. Keep an eye on things. Have some phone calls. But when that comes on, I'm gonna try to focus in on it. Until next time. Thanks for being here. See you soon.